Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Good Stuff. I'm Kevin Bille, and as always, we appreciate you joining us. Well, hey, today, episode number 63, I have the president of St. Thomas University in Miami, Florida, and a very good friend, Dave Armstrong. Dave, what's going on?
Hey, Kevin, great to see you. I love Easton's sign for good stuff in the back. I love the professionalism of that sign, and I want you to know that, and you know this, I've been begging you and hitting you up to be on this podcast. And all along, I thought maybe you didn't want me, but in reality, you were saving me for my favorite number, 63. That was my college number, the year I was born. And I'm going to be honest with you. You don't know this. You brought a little tear to my eye when you said that you saved me for 63. So I'm happy to be on 63. I didn't need to be on in the first 10. That's what I thought originally, but I'm in 63, and that's perfectly where I am. So I appreciate that.
I love it. Yeah. Well, I know a little bit about you, so I thought that would be a good, nice personal touch. Well, hey, I know this. I'm sure people that know you in general know you've been in a lot of roles, right? I mean, in athletics, as coaching, administration, also then, before you became president, all the different roles you had at the college up at Notre Dame College. And now, of course, being a president at Thomas More and then at St. Thomas, I'd just be anxious to know right off the bat, what similarities are there that you've discovered in all those roles?
Well, number one is I gave a talk when I first became president of St. Thomas University down here in Florida at Lynn University with Gary Bonk, who's a president of the Kaiser campus in West Palm Beach. And we had never met each other. And we did this session together on leadership. And we just all of a sudden just hit it off. It was like Laurel and Hardy or whatever. And at the end, this woman said, she goes, "This is the best presentation I've ever been in." And she said, "What is it that you want on your tombstone? Or what is it that you want people to say about you?" No one's ever asked me that question. And I answered, and I said, "Listen," and you know me, I just come up with the answer right away and don't really think about it. And I said, "I want people to say one thing about me. Dave Armstrong got things done." Now, I know people were thinking, "Oh, you want to say that you're a good husband or a father or faith-filled," and, I think all those things go into that.
Mm-hmm.
But we get one shot on this marble, and I want people to know that we got things done. And so that is in all those leadership roles, especially as a turnaround guy and a startup guy, is you got to get things done. And so when it comes to that, leadership, the best definition of leadership I ever heard was from Lou Holtz, which you will love that being a Notre Dame fan. And I'm sure he got it from somebody else. But leadership, the definition of it for me that I live by is 5 things. Number one, a leader must have vision. And I don't care if you're coaching Pee-wee kids or you're the president of a university or running the president of a country. Number one, a leader must have vision. Number 2, a leader must have a plan to implement the vision. Number 3, a leader must lead by example. Number 4, a leader must find people with the shared vision. And number 5, and for a turnaround guy, this is the most important one for me, a leader must hold people accountable to the plan. And so if you can live by those 5 things, then you can be a leader in any shape or form. Now, when I go out and speak on this subject, I also say that I have a new definition of leadership. When I was general counsel at Notre Dame and used to go to some of those legal conferences, and I hosted this breakfast this one time with general counsels of higher ed, and I asked everyone to tell us their career path. No one wakes up or is 6 years old and says, "I want to be a higher ed lawyer, a general counsel at a university in the most turbulent times in higher ed." Okay, all these people had other different dreams and goals, but along the way, what happened is they said yes when they were faced with issues, adversity, or problems, and their supervisor came to them and said, "I need help," or "Can you fix this," or whatever. So I've learned when I look back at my career, I'm in the seat that I'm in because I said yes when my supervisors or my presidents needed someone to fix something. And so to me, that's a great lesson for young people today is say yes to opportunities because you never know where it's going to take you, and then get things done and prove it, and you'll be successful.
That's good. That's good. And I can personally attest to you check marking the box on all of those just with your leadership skills. And it's very evident to me, Dave, being around you, you're somebody that has vision as a leader. And I know you alluded to some of this already, but I think you've got to get buy-in, right? We talked about this on the show before with a number of people. What are some ways that leaders can get that buy-in?
Well, you have to create a culture. That old saying that culture eats strategy for lunch and all that kind of stuff. And it's true. And if there's anything I've learned in this business, of especially turnaround, and let me tell you this, I'm working on a podcast and potentially a book, 21 things I know before I walk into a financially failing institution. Number one is no one's a bad person because it's financially failing. There could be all kinds of reasons. There could be the greatest things happening at that place. But if you're financially failing, the mission's going to die. No market, no mission. And so you have to turn it around. And here's the best way to turn it around. And Joe Locker, one of my trustees here, said this when I came on. He says, Dave, I see what you're doing. You're changing the culture. And he said, there's only two ways to change the culture: change the people and change the people. So in reality, it's very tough to get people out of a mode that they're in, because then you're the bad guy because you're changing me and you're making me uncomfortable and all that kind of stuff. And so what I've learned in this business is that John Dooner is the board chair here, and that's why I'm here. The guy was a pit bull to get me here. I was not really interested in the job. But when he said, Dave, I want you, I think you're the guy that can turn this around, because this school almost closed a couple of years ago because they were going to merge. And so that means two schools would not have existed. And so then they went at it alone, and that's when I got hired. And I said, I really wasn't interested. And he said, well, what would make you interested? And I know he was thinking about money or whatever. And I was never motivated by money. It's nice, but I'm never motivated by it. And I said, John, I would need carte blanche on hiring and firing. Before I can get that phrase out, he said, done. And I said, now I'm interested.
Yeah.
And because I was able to bring in my own people right away that understand me and my vision and what we're trying to accomplish and how we work and how we hold people accountable, we were able to turn this institution around from massive $1 million deficits to massive $1 million surpluses in just 2 years. And in 3 years, we're just going crazy. 3 straight years of record enrollment. Law school had its largest and strongest academic class in the history of the school. Turn around the finances, building 4 buildings, new football field, or I should say competition field, and it's going great.
That's awesome. I want to back up a little bit in terms of leadership. I think it's really important, as a leader, to be vulnerable, Dave. And I think that one thing we could both be vulnerable with, probably for an entire podcast, is mistakes we've made in leadership. So whether that's any mistakes that you've made, personally, or just what are some common mistakes overall that you're seeing leaders make nowadays? Because I think it's one thing if we talked about 20 years ago, it's a different era now. So I would think that these things differ to a certain degree, but maybe there are some that have been the same over time.
Yeah, I would say that, to me, there's some things that you have to have in order to be a leader. Number one is communication. Number 2 is authenticity. And number 3 is follow through. And I would say that's where a lot of people stumble, is in poor communication. You can never, especially in this day and age with social media and all that stuff, you cannot communicate enough and you cannot communicate fast enough. So that's all new. People say, oh, well, we want to make this announcement next week. Hey, man, it's already out on social media. Mm-hmm. The kids are already talking about it. It's all over the place. If you aren't first, you are last. The old, whatchamacallit, the race car movie with Will Ferrell. If you ain't first, you're last. And that's it with communication now. And so, but I would say that a lot of people, especially now with 24-hour news and social media literally tearing this country apart for news ratings and clickbait, it's the authenticity. Mm-hmm. And whether you're trying to be woke when you're not, or you're trying to be this when you're not, or whatever that is, people see through that. I've always believed, and this, Kevin, I've always done my own marketing. I write my own radio commercials. I do my own TV commercials, although I have a face for radio. I try to stay off TV and let good-looking people like you be on TV. Yeah. But if I hire an actor, kids today know it. Real World, the MTV show started when I was in college. Mm-hmm. People see reality TV and all that stuff. They know when they're getting lied to. They know when reality TV is fake. And so I've always believed it's got to come from the heart. It comes from you. And that's the best way. No one could tell your story better than you. Right. And so I think it's that lack of authenticity right now that's really creating some issues. But I'll say this, and I think, you know this better than anybody. As a leader, I try to be very direct. And you can't be direct if you don't have conviction, right? Mm-hmm. And when pride and ego get in the way, and I say when you have conviction, you know it's the right thing to do, so be direct about it. But there's times where we're wrong, right? And pride and ego gets in the way and all that stuff. So I try to only hire people that are willing to clean the toilet. And some of my staff people hate when I say this, but it's true. You know, I come from nothing. My parents came from nothing on the east side of Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a blue collar background. I'm a first generation college student. My parents did so much to send their 7 kids through Catholic grade school, high school, and college. You know, 4 of us through Catholic college. 2 of us have earned advanced degrees, and both of us are in education, me and Mary. And so what we do is we're willing to clean the toilet. And, you know, that has to happen. And so when I pick up my dog poop at home or, you know, you see me walking around school picking up litter, because that's what keeps you humble and keeps you focused on what to do. Don't expect anybody to do anything that you won't do.
Right. Right. Well, and I always remember, I think that also, you know, to your point about people, you find out about them, right? And just a personal thing, you know, being up at Notre Dame, knowing that I was hired with a phone, a desk, a computer, and it was like, let's go, right? And you're making something at that time out of nothing. And some people, you know, if there's leaders that are listening out here, I think that's one way to weed out maybe the people and create that culture. And going back, you know, to that culture, now being a president, I would like to know, being a president of 2 colleges, do you think there's a timeline to know whether or not, you know, your culture that you're trying to create has worked or it hasn't worked?
I love that question. And people have asked me that before. And I'll tell you this, a lot of studies have been done about how long it takes to turn around an educational institution at any level. They've landed on 7 years. It takes 7 years to turn around an educational institution financially and culturally and all that kind of stuff. And it totally makes sense because people are usually very entrenched. Teachers, professors, faculty are very entrenched, okay? And people go to work in higher ed and in colleges and high school because they want to be back where they used to be when they were younger. And so they're in it for a reason. And so they believe that it's a safe place and I can be who I am. And all those things are great. But if you're not doing the job, and you're not being held accountable and you're no margin, no mission, then it doesn't work. So I will tell you this, is I can tell you the exact moment that programs have turned around that I've been involved in. So when I took over at Teal College, worst program in the country, they hadn't won a game in 3 years. I won my first game as head coach. Should have dropped the mic right there and walked out. You learned that lesson. But there was a game in our 3rd year where, and we didn't have a lot of wins, but we had a ton of kids on our program. I was also the athletic director. We won 4 conference titles. They hadn't done that before, and I don't think they've done it since. And we were at a homecoming game, and it was packed everywhere and tailgate going on everywhere. And I looked at my assistant, and I just said, we did it. We may not have all the wins that we want, but we've turned this place around. Mm-hmm. And I can give you that exact moment at Notre Dame College. It was our 5th year, and Dr. Roth and I, you know, great visionary leader, we walked into our new coffee shop in the library. Remember, we made a coffee shop in the library in the bookstore. And we were in there and it was packed and it was loud and people were coming in and out and they were laughing and talking. And he and I are sitting there and we're looking out. And remember, I had to open those tennis courts for people to park on because we didn't have enough parking. Yeah. And I looked at Andy and I said, we did it. We did it. It was that moment. So I tell people all the time, you can feel it and hear it. At Thomas More University, it was my 3rd year there when we had a post-commencement party. We tried to do it the first 2 years. It didn't work because it rained and all this kind of stuff. Finally, we had a beautiful day. And all through the rolling hills of Thomas More, people were partying and laughing and having fun. And I brought my senior team in, my cabinet, just to show them. I said, look out this window. I said, we did it. We turned it around. We turned around the culture. At STU, it actually happened the first week of school this year. We turned around the finances in 2 years, but this year we brought in the 3rd straight year of record enrollment. More students than we had here, we brought in more than that. There was no parking anywhere. And we actually went around, took a drone and took all the videos. It was awesome. And we made this great video about how happening it was. And you can feel it, you can see it, you can hear it.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. And I think, you know, at least as a coach, maybe this aligns, but it's almost like, you know, when you take what you have as a team and then, you know, it's a program, right? I mean, that's the difference is when you walk away from the gym or the field, you know, for a day, But I know, for example, like the first 4 or 5 years, if I walked away from the gym, it would have been a wreck. But it does definitely take some time. So thanks for the insight on that. What about in terms of being a president? I'd be really intrigued to know one lesson, one thing that sticks out to you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life.
Well, I'm going to say two things, but then I'm going to get in to answer your question. Number one is, as a president, this is the first time in my life I've had one job. So taking every opportunity, working 3 jobs, 4 full-time jobs to make your mark, get things done, and show people you can achieve goals and solve problems and fix issues, that will move you up the ladder quicker than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so this is now granted, the president has a lot of things he's got to do, but it's the first time I've ever had one job, these 2 presidencies. But I'll say sustainability is probably the most important thing. And to me, it's 4 things, because when you turn it around, that's great. And Napoleon had a great quote, the most dangerous time is after victory. Okay. So what do you do once you did a turnaround or did a startup and you're viable now? Now what do you do? Well, to me, in order to continue that momentum is, number one, you have to always know your higher purpose. For me, we're selling futures. We know that when somebody gets a college degree, that's going to change the trajectory of their life and for the life of their generations to come. Always remember your higher purpose. Yes, we get stuck in the day-to-day, but remember that higher purpose. Number 2 is goal setting. It's 3 things, but it's one thing: goal setting, goal getting, and setting new goals. Never stop setting goals. Never stop getting goals. And number 3, you must have a relentless pursuit for more effectiveness and more efficiency. There's always something you can make better, or there's always a new technology or a new system you can bring in to make your company or your organization better. And lastly, and this is why you and I are friends, this is why the best friends of my life are people that I've worked with. You got to have fun. Yeah. If we're going to be doing all this work and being here all the time, if you are not laughing and having a ball and can laugh at yourself and all those kind of things and be friends and celebrate your victories and have parties and do all that kind of stuff, and we've had some great ones, okay, then it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think happens when people don't sustain their momentum, is they forget their higher purpose, they're not doing their goals, they're not pursuing efficiency and effectiveness, and they're not having fun. So you got to do those things.
And to your last point, Dave, I think that builds a relationship so that you're able, we've had plenty of tough conversations in our lifetime, and neither of us have shied away from them, mainly because of who we are, but at the same time, because we've built trust and credibility in that relationship over time, and being able to have fun with one another has allowed those moments to occur. Right. And so I think that's something that's really important. And I hope people realize that, because I think you can get caught in this rut of everyday life. Just being on the Zoom call earlier, I was telling you about with somebody and just saying, hey, celebrate victories, man. Just make the most of them now and don't get on to the next one. You talked about your family a little bit. I know your background of faith. I think it's a commonality. We share a lot of other guests on the show. And so I just want to know, like, why are family and faith such a high priority for you in your life?
Well, I just got chills just you asking the question. Everything that I am, everything that I'm about is because of family. My parents, they're my heroes. Jesus Christ, Martin Luther King, and my parents are my heroes because they built things. They didn't tear things down, and they didn't stay stagnant. They built things. And, having 4 older brothers and 2 younger sisters, we just had, it was all about family. And so happy with my wife, Leslie, and my son, David and Johanna, and they're both here. David graduated from Thomas More, where I was president. Johanna's been here. She's going to graduate this year. David's working on a master's here. It's so awesome that my kids have chosen the school where I'm at. So it makes it very easy for me to raise money and recruit kids, because if it's good enough for the president's kids, it's got to be good enough for you, right? And so, but, the faith part, I'm a sinner. We're all sinners, and never, be holier than thou or anything like that. But I think that's an issue in this country today, in this world today. There's the great Timothy Ferriss book, Tribe of Mentors, where they went to 500 people and did all this stuff. And I'll be honest, I got done with that book and I was actually a little ticked off, because I think only one guy or one lady in that book talked about faith. All of them talked about meditation. Meditation is surface, man. And yeah, you can get deep in meditation, but faith is more important. And if that's what it's not about, then what are we doing here? And so I was very perturbed about that. So when I talk and do things like this and podcasts, I'm not afraid to talk about my faith and sometimes my inability to live up to my faith. Okay. But if we don't have faith in God and know that this is the center of everything that we do, then we're not doing it right. You know, I was at a retreat when I was at Barnabas at Notre Dame College, and I was going through tough times with my wife and the family, and like we all do. And I'm talking to the priest, and I'm telling him about how busy I am, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. And Kevin was his name. He was a 35-year-old priest. He called me out. He just looked at me and he said, "Dave, you're full of BS." And he said that in the church. And he said, "You got one job. Your job is to get your wife and your kids to heaven." Wow. You talk about a lightning bolt and somebody just putting you on the spot. And that's it. And we don't talk about that enough. We have to talk about that.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, let's dive into your athletic background now. And you know, obviously a great player at Mercyhurst. You've mentioned being a coach. We talked about being an AD. Let's start with the game of football. I know how passionate you are about it. And I think I got a pretty good idea, but I'd love for others to hear, what did football specifically teach Dave Armstrong?
Well, number one, it's the greatest sport that was ever invented by God. And why I say that is because football has everything. You have to be the smartest person. You have to be the toughest person. You have to be the most physical person, the most emotional person. You have to have it all: spiritual, you know, mind, body, and spirit. That's the great game of football. And it's truly an American game. That's why it's the greatest game ever. For me, people talk all the time, what are the skill sets you use as a president? I'll tell you the skill sets I use as a president. The skill sets I use every day are the lessons I learned on the football field: hard work, discipline, a positive attitude, overcoming an adversity, color blindness, very important in today's world. I didn't care what color Chucky Rhodes was, or Ed Clutcher, or Don Early. Block your guy. Let's score touchdowns. That's how we, in my opinion, we need to live. And so all those things, teamwork, I learned on the football field, and I use them every day.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's real good.
Now, and to be honest, another one, Kevin, is toughness. That's one of the things that no one wants to talk about anymore. Do you know that this time in history right now, the men in America have the lowest level of testosterone in the history of our country? And it's been declining for the last 60 years. That's not a good thing. Now, people say, "Oh, that's toxic masculinity." No, that's a bunch of baloney. Okay? You still need to have grit and toughness. So do women. Women need to be, obviously the toughest people I've ever met in my life are women. Okay? That toughness factor. And when parents come to me, "Hey, I'm not sure about my kid playing college football. You know, I'm not sure about their safety, and I'm not sure if this is the right thing for them." I say, listen, if you want your kid to be successful in this life and to live this life, let them play football or soccer or basketball or whatever it is, to develop those skill sets that will help them achieve their dreams and be a great kid who's a great student, who is engaged in life. Put them out there on the field.
I know I'm going to go on record to saying I know my wife's tougher than me. I've watched 3 kids being born, so that definitely.
I said the same thing when Leslie had her.
What about no? What about coaching in general, though? I know you've alluded to some of this a little bit already, but what about coaching? I mean, obviously, you just talked about playing a little bit. How did coaching, dealing with different kids, you know, having a staff, going through a season of ups and downs, being on a losing streak, how did that all prepare you for what you're doing today? Are there any other things that are different than what it was as a player?
Oh yeah, it's a whole different world. You know, as a player, you think that you're so tired because we used to do triples, triple sessions when I was playing high school and college ball, mostly college ball. And we thought we were so tired. We used to get breaks in between practice and all that stuff. Oh, first year I was coaching college ball, I've never been as tired. And I've had the worst summer jobs ever. Nothing prepared me, including playing football, to be a coach.
Yeah,
You
right.
are up on your feet 20 hours a day. You're getting very little sleep. Everything's intense. You're always on. It is just the most intense thing. When I came to Notre Dame and I was working till 10 o'clock at night, and professors would come in and say, Dave, you're awesome. You're working till 10 o'clock at night. And I'm thinking, I'm stealing their money. Because when I was coaching, I didn't get home until 3 in the morning. And then I was back at 7. So I thought, well, heck, I'm stealing money here. I'm working at 10 and coming in at 9. And so it's just the work ethic that you have to have as a coach. I did a podcast with one of my former players. He has a very famous podcast, Joe Lafferty. And he was probably one of the toughest kids I had to coach. He was just going through a lot of tough times and things like that. And it was amazing the things that he remembered and the lessons that he actually learned. We think that they don't remember. And it was actually a very emotional podcast. And we talked about it. But to this question, I want to answer it this way. What prepared me to be a head coach was not being a vice president at a college and general counsel and all those kind of things. What prepared me to be the president of a university, to be a president of a university, what prepared me to be the president of a university was being a head football coach. And how I describe it is this. When you're a head football coach, you are sitting on top of a flagpole, hugging on for dear life, butt naked. That's what it's like. Because everybody knows the job better than you. Everybody can plays. Everybody can play better players. Everybody can recruit better players. Nobody gives you the information they need. They're either blowing smoke up your butt or they're not, or they're lying to you. And so that's what it's like being a president. And so what prepared me to be a president was being a head football coach and knowing how it feels being naked on top of that flagpole. And I know that's such a graphic image, but I'm telling you, it's the truth. And if so many people don't understand that, and then they get in the role and they're like, whoa, I didn't know I was going to be this exposed. Yes, you are. And so if you can't imagine that and think, can I survive that? Then don't take this job.
I'm laughing because of the visual, and I'm also laughing because how true it is. Because I met a lot of people after Ohio State lost that first game who are better coaches than Ryan Day, just as an example. But Dave, I'd be curious to know, and you don't have to give names by no means if you don't want, but was there a certain coach in your life that impacted you? And I guess if so, what was it? Was there something about that coach that stuck out? And is that maybe a reason why you went into coaching?
I am so fortunate. I am here because of all the coaches and teachers I've had in my life. I mean, there's just so many to talk about. But I'll name a couple. Coach Scaife, who was my high school coach, who actually got me into coaching while I was in law school. And I found right away that while I was putting people in jail in the city of Lakewood as a prosecutor while I was in law school, as a coach, I was saving lives. And Sam Ratigliano, our friend, used to always say, you're not in this business to end lives, you're in the business to save lives. And Coach Scaife, I'm a president today because of Coach Scaife. And then I was fortunate enough to bring him out of retirement. And he was my head coach at Thomas More and became AFC Head Coach of the Year, went to the playoffs. And he's with me now with our new STU program with Bill Reichel as the head coach. It's just awesome that this guy's been with me for so many years. And he has impacted so many lives. Coach Marabito was my offensive line coach, taught me so much about life. Coach DeMayo, my head college football coach, he was the vision guy, man. Took a team that, it was a brand new team, and we ended up being nationally ranked by the time we left. Coach Coghill and Coach Govang, my wrestling coaches, because I hated wrestling, but I had some of my best athletic moments as a wrestler. Coach Rocco, my grade school coach, I still say things that he said back then. But the one coach that I'll bring out that probably my favorite moment, and if I get a little emotional, I'll apologize in advance, Freddie Conger. Freddie Conger was the offensive line coach and offensive coordinator. He was an All-American at University of Kentucky offensive lineman. And just the toughest nails, most convicted, just great guy, just great conviction, just passion, just oozing out of him. And when I went to college, I was one of the highly recruited guys, and it was the second year of the program. They were expecting us to come in and start. And I'll be honest, I didn't come in great shape, number one. Number two, my brother Kevin came in great shape and should have been the starter, but he ended up getting in a fight at a scrimmage with one of the head coach's favorite kids. So me and him were kind of ostracized, and we were the only two kids that didn't play varsity ball out of 86 kids. But the next year I came back, I said, I'm either going to start or I'm going to retire. And I will say this, my sophomore year at Mercyhurst was the most intense, best time of my life because I reached my potential, the highest potential I could have. And I came into camp so focused. I knew every play in the playbook. I knew everybody's position. I was the first guy at the weight room, first guy at the training room, first guy at the meals. The players themselves were calling me Mr. Offense. I mean, it was just crazy. And I was just so intense about starting or because I said, this is it. And you as a human being, sometimes you got to do that. You got to set that. If I don't achieve my goal, then I'm leaving it forever. And I never wanted to leave football forever. And the first day of hitting, our defense was phenomenal. The offense wasn't that good the year before or the year before that. But this year, Freddie was the offense coordinator, and he wanted the offensive line coach, and he wanted us to dominate. And he came up with the name for us, CIA, which actually stood for Castrate, Intimidate, Annihilate. We said it stood for Conquerism, Intimidates All. Well, the first day of hitting, which is a big day, Nutcracker, Oklahoma drill, which some people are getting rid of, which I think is crazy. I went up against the best that we had, and I could tell a much longer story, but I beat every one of them. And when I got to beat the sixth guy, because the other guys were not beating them, and I kept on beating them or pancaking them. And these guys, some of these guys signed professional contracts from a Division III football program. That's how great they were. But on that day, Coach Conger grabs me after I beat the fifth guy in a row. And he takes me and he's jacking me around with my shoulder pads, and he puts me down. He says, kneel down right here. He said, this is where all Americans kneel. All Americans kneel right here. And I knelt there for the rest of the drill. And I was sitting there bawling. And to this day, I've had some great athletic accomplishments. I've been in Hall of Fames. I've had great games, championships as a coach, all this kind of stuff, national champions as an administrator. Greatest moment I've ever had as an athlete. Greatest moment ever. When my coach believed in me that much and I performed the way I could. That was the best.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think that's probably something that you said it earlier, that you don't realize when you have that type of impact on them, and you might not know it till 5-10 years later. But I think at the end of the day, a coach, a leader, there's something inside of that individual, it exists. You just got to get it out of there, right? And sometimes you might have to go about it in a way they don't like or appreciate at the time, but I think it's worth it in the long run, especially when you have a story like that. Hey, just closing up a couple things before we go into 3-pointers, habits. I know you walk every morning, and I see your pictures on Twitter. I knew back in the day it was in the snow and other things where we lived, and now you got this beautiful beach. What are some other habits that maybe you have that some leaders that are listening out there? We talk about that a lot on the show. You and I just spoke about my man James Clear. What are some habits that you have that you think some leaders should definitely have on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's much better. I am purposefully setting those pictures of me walking on the beach with the sunrise back to my friends up north. Yes. I have to walk every day, usually for an hour. This morning I did an hour and a half because I had a photo shoot because I like to eat and drink too much. So, and offensive line guy, I got to do that. But I'll be honest, on that walk though, Kevin, it's not just a walk. I say a rosary every day on that walk. And again, going back to faith, and prayer, I believe in the power of prayer, and I try not to pray for myself. I try to pray for others, and I believe prayer works. And just in that moment, being close to God, and especially on the beaches and the views that I see when I'm walking, I just love it. And a lot of attitude of gratitude during those prayers, for the gift of life. You and I are similar. We don't sleep well. And so I'll give a couple other habits is have some good big books on your side table. That's what puts me to sleep. I read the Star Report, the investigation of Bill Clinton, and I fell asleep every time I opened up the page. It was so damn boring. And actually, one of my former players was one of the Secret Service guys that let out the cat at the White House, Daniel Carbonetti. It was hilarious. And I actually got to meet Ken Starr at a conference because he became the president at Baylor. And I was sitting next to him, and I looked at him, and I finally said, you know what? I fell asleep to your report for probably about 3 months. And it was the best answer ever. He looks at me and he goes, you're not the only one. And he and I then became friends, and he's a great guy, and it was awesome. So you got to get some sleep, and I'm not good at it. I'll be honest. I'm going to just say it's a tiny little thing about habits, but have you ever heard of the 4-7-8 method?
Is this breathing?
Yes.
Inhale. Yeah.
So
I thought it was 4-6-8. I've been doing 6 the whole time.
No, so 4-7-8.
Okay.
So you inhale 4, hold your breath for 7, exhale for 8, do it 4 times. And I'll tell you, that's been a lifesaver for me. And it's about breathing, right? And that's meditation and things like that. And my sister Mary said a great thing when I told her about this method. And I learned it on the John Tesh show. I was driving somewhere and John Tesh was on the radio. And, I hate John Tesh, but he probably saved my life, right? Because I could sleep now. But my sister Mary had a great line. I said, she goes, well, why does it help you sleep? I said, because it gives you oxygen. She goes, you know what? In this country, we have a country of shallow breathers. And she's right. We're always about pressure and thinking about the next day and all that stuff. We're not getting our breath and our oxygen in. So make sure you get some sleep.
Well, I sleep much better.
Even though I'm not good at it.
Yeah, I sleep much better now that I'm not a coach. I can tell you that much. Hey, you just mentioned reading. We like to talk about books on here as we close for 3-pointers. Give us a best one, or maybe one you're reading right now that's really sparking your interest.
So my favorite book of all time is Hamilton. There's a 1 and 1A, Hamilton by Chernow, Alexander Hamilton by Chernow. Alexander Hamilton, the country that we live in today, out of all the founders, we live in Hamilton's country. And Chernow is such a great writer, and how he writes, it was like a novel. And this was all before Lin-Manuel Miranda, but I totally understand why that motivated him so much to do that wonderful play. And so in the musical, 1A is Liberty Secrets by Joshua Charles. He was a millennial who went to law school in DC and decided through original sources only to try to find the answers to what ails us in our country today. And he found them. And it's just a wonderful book. And I actually had him speak at my inauguration. And I bought a book for every one of our students. And I just love that book, Liberty Secrets by Joshua Charles. A novel that an employee gave me when they left here, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I'm not a big novel person, but it's a beautiful novel. And I met her in the Atlanta airport, and I was able to buy 2 copies, get them signed. I collect signed books, and gave one back to that employee who I convinced to come back. And so that was pretty cool. But right now I'm reading Woke Inc. by Vivek Ramaswamy, who actually grew up in Southern Ohio. And it is brilliant. He exposes all the baloney that's going on right now with the mainstream media, businesses, corporate. We're just not doing the right thing right now. Corporations are being woke to make money, and people aren't seeing that. And so there's a lot of, things that we're not catching, and he's calling it out. And he was in a hedge fund. He was in the business. And so this has been a very good book. And of course, Atomic Habits, I just got done reading, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
But I usually have 3 or 4 books on my bedstand, and, I'm getting 2 or 3 books done a week, and because I don't sleep. So
right. Well, last thing before we go into 3-pointers, I know you've got a deadly jump shot, so we'll get to that in a second. But what's favorite Browns moment ever? You're diehard Browns fan. I got to know what your favorite moment ever was.
So you think I'm a Browns fan, huh? Well, you were not a member of our family unless my dad took you to a game. He had season tickets for 60 years, used them to grow his business, tool and die shop. And he was cheap because he parked in a horrible place, and we had to walk through all the alleys and all that kind of stuff during the 70s, and smelling the cigars and the coffee with the whiskey and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you were not a part of our family till you went to a game with him. But my favorite moment of all time, Browns versus Jets, 1986, when I won the game. You remember that? That's the Gastineau game with
Gastineau
and all that stuff. Mark Mosley hit the field goal in overtime. How do I know I won the game? Everyone was leaving. I was there with all my brothers. We had 12 seats out of a 13-seat row. I'm not going to tell you what we all snuck in and what was gone by the first quarter. And it was cold. I took off my shirt and just started chanting, "Here we go, Brownies. Here we go." You know my wonderful chant that I do. If you go on YouTube, you can see it. Terry Pluto, Things I Learned Watching the Cleveland Browns. And eventually got the whole stadium to do it, and it brought the Browns back, and they won. So that's moment number 1. Number 2 has to be last year. My mother bought me a bottle of wine that had a Cleveland Browns label on it. I jokingly said, "I'll open this wine when the Browns beat the Steelers in a meaningful game." I didn't know it was going to take 20 years, but they won 2 meaningful games. I opened the wine, and it was the best wine I've ever drank in my life. And I'm in a mixed marriage because my wife's a Steelers fan.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, hey, let's get into 3-pointers here, rapid fire, a little bit longer.
No, we got to do the last meal.
I did forget to ask about the last meal. What is it? What are you having if it's last meal?
I'm an offensive lineman.
Yeah,
I'm an offensive lineman. I've been thinking about this since I was 12. All right, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Baronacci's mushroom pepperoni cheese pizza.
That's good.
All right. Pepperoni, mushroom, sausage. I'm sorry. Sausage, pepperoni, mushroom. Mr. Chicken, Mr. Hero Roman Burger, Buffalo style hot wings with blue cheese from Buffalo, a chocolate malted shake, and the coldest ice cold water you can have. The last thing I want to ever do on this earth is taking a great drink of ice cold water, the greatest gift God ever gave us. There you go.
Those are good. I'm hungry now. So 3 pointers here. You're gonna spot up at Noontime Hoops back in the day, and I'm gonna feed you. All right.
That's right.
Number one, if people could learn one thing from this talk, there's a lot in here. What would you want them to take from this talk and hold on to?
Be passionate about living. We got one shot. Be passionate about living. Forgive if you can. I know it's tough to do. Move on. Love everybody and be passionate about living your life. You only get one.
Good. Number two, if Dave could have came over here today and been Kevin behind the mic, what question would have you asked Dave Armstrong that I did not ask today?
I think more about, failures that we've had to deal with and how to overcome them. A great book that I read after I left Thiel College and, got let go from there. We turned around the program and not enough wins to keep the job. And, we don't teach our kids how to fail. Mm-hmm. Only one team wins the Super Bowl.
That's right.
And what we don't do in this country, we tell everybody, you can do this, you can achieve this, and blue ribbon and all this baloney. No, you got to learn how to lose. Mm-hmm. You got to learn how to fail and fail correctly. And you got to fail forward. And that was a book that Maxwell wrote. My chiropractor in Greenville, PA, John Mastretta, gave me that book. And at the time, saved my life, man.
Yeah.
That was the first time I ever failed professionally in my life and failed athletically in my life. And so how do you fail forward? So that would be it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, hey, good stuff's the name of this. Give us some good stuff in closing here. Anything that you might feel is appropriate to wrap this up before we get into a little bit more on STU?
No, I just, I am so full of gratitude, Kevin, that you had me on here, especially on number 63, my special number. You know how much I enjoy you and love talking to you. And I'm just so proud of you and the work that you're doing with good stuff. Because anything I've learned as I moved up the ladder of business, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, is great people find great people, and that just makes everything better. And so you got to keep on looking for good people and people that can teach you, because none of us know everything and none of us probably know not much, right? And so just always learning from great people and getting good people together to make even better things happen.
There you go. 3 for 3, knocked it down, man.
Always. Who's taking the last shot in the NBA? Noontime Basketball Association. I want.
Well, hey, you've got some exciting things going on right now at STU. You talked about them a little bit, but just give us a little bit more insight as to, maybe not only what's going on, but what some of the things are for your vision here moving forward.
It's a wonderful university. We're celebrating our 60th year. It was started in 1961 as a Biscayne college, but the story goes further back more than that, deeper than that. This college was actually founded by Augustinian priests from Philadelphia in Havana, Cuba. It was the first private Catholic college in Cuba, and the first one to go co-ed in the Latin Americas and all this. It's just a wonderful story. But in 1961, Fidel Castro himself invaded the campus, cut the head off of the statue of Santo Tomas de Villanueva, and put the priests up against the wall to kill them. And they were saved after 2 weeks, and immediately they started Biscayne College for Men after getting a gift of land from the Archdiocese of Miami, and that's where we are today. So we are an Archdiocesan Catholic university with a great mission. And we've had, again, every colleges go through a tough time. We almost had a merger. That's when I was brought in post-merger. And we've had 3 straight years of record enrollment. The law school has had their largest class and strongest academic class ever in the history of the school. We've built 4 new buildings. We have a new field coming on campus. We just have a ton of excitement going on. And I'm going to end it with this. COVID has been a horrible thing for this country, not only because of the horrible deaths and the sickness. We all know that. And it's a horrible disease. But it's done more to hurt the fabric of this country. People aren't working hard enough. People aren't coming back from work. The strong work ethic that we have as a country has been dented, and it was done intentionally. So at St. Thomas University, we did not do what everybody else did in this country. I made it clear from the beginning that we were going to make decisions not based on the political or the panic or the timid. We are going to make decisions based on giving our students a full collegiate experience while keeping our most vulnerable safe. So we've been open the whole time. We've had athletics the whole time, residence life, student activities. And don't let what people say about Florida, that's baloney. Florida is killing it right now. We are thriving economically. We are thriving with living our lives. Governor DeSantis took care of the older people and got them vaccinated right away. And people have been coming into the state, pouring into the state to live here. And he's doing a wonderful job. I couldn't be happier. And here we are in Miami, and we've never closed. And so, just that 2 months where everybody had to shut down back in 20 spring, but we came right back in the fall and we're open and have been open ever since. I did 2 big in-person graduations and have had minimal cases. Balance, Kevin. We've lost balance in this country. If you have a balanced approach, you can succeed.
Well, it's exciting to hear about everything. I guess first and foremost, I'll get to a little bit maybe that here and close. But before we do that, let's tell everybody where they can find you on social media. I know you're very active on Twitter and also some other resources as well.
All right, I got my card right here. Twitter, STUPrez, so capital STUPREZ. And then Instagram and Snapchat at STU, all capital, _Prez, again with the capital P. On Facebook at STU.president. And on LinkedIn, I don't know if this one's still correct, but it says David A. Armstrong, JD. And so I try to be out there on social media. It's a great way to get to students and parents. And anything that I can do for anyone out there, if you want to come to sunny Florida and get a great education, St. Thomas University is the place.
Well, Dave, thanks a lot, man. I mean, I think there's special moments and people that come in your life, and I know what we had at Notre Dame College for 10 years was that. It's a joy to stay in touch and follow your path as well. I'm extremely proud of you too. I'm not the least bit surprised as to what's going on down there at St. Thomas University. I know you're going to get results. I also know, for the people that are listening, I think one of the more admirable things I can say is you're as loyal as anybody I've ever met. And I know if I called you, today needing something, you'd be here right away. In fact, I don't know many people that hop in a car and drive 4 or 5 hours to see somebody for 15, 20 minutes for their birthday and stuff like that. I don't forget. So thanks for all that. And thanks for joining us today, bud.
You got it, Kevin. And tell Aaron and the kids I said hello and God bless you and go Bobcats.
Likewise. And hey, everybody, thanks for joining us here today. A little emotional here at the end, but it's been a great path that Dave and I have been on. We thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope that you're able to have something like this, a part of your work life as well, and even in your relationships. Always remember to follow us on all social medias. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out to goodstuffkevin@gmail.com. And until next time, good stuff.
God bless you.